Hello and welcome to The Witch Source. I'm Whitney and I have a very special guest with me today, Steven Intermill, and he is from the Buckland Museum. So we will get into that later, but first off, welcome, Steven.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, good. Thank
Glad to
you
be
for joining me. Yeah.
here.
So what was your introduction into the craft?
I guess this is the kind of thing that I've always been into. It's ever since I was a kid. I always say that I was the kid that was buying books on UFOs, Bigfoot, cryptids, even though we didn't really call them cryptids back then, in scholastic book fairs. My friends and I would go Bigfoot hunting in the
Oh,
woods
cool.
by our house, and both gosh, both Tennessee and in Sweden when I lived there for a year when I was a kid. So yeah, I have a mother that's Swedish. I spent a lot of time in pine forests, which tends to lend itself to a magical worldview. So just kind of the kid that I was growing up. So I've always had a fascination with it.
Awesome. When would you say like you officially got involved or started studying?
I don't know, when I was like maybe 4 years old. It's like I said, it's something that I've kind of been around the whole time. I think maybe the first time that there was a true magical act I was involved with was a uh, co-student in my high school named Allie read my tarot cards for me when at our lunch table, and after that I was a devotee of the mysteries, I suppose.
Nice. So, did you have any formal training at some point?
I have had some formal training. Nothing that I'm unfortunately with like a lot of the traditions that I find myself involved with. You have people changing their Facebook name to reflect their mysteries. Uh, I don't really want to go down that route, but I have had a number of spiritual teachers, guru types that I followed. So, but to that, I'd rather leave to the audience imagination, and anybody that does a little bit of digging can figure it out, I suppose.
Okay. So, at what point did it become something that was really um, serious for you? Or, like, what did you have any kind of point in time where, like, you started meeting up with people or meeting other people that were interested in the same things? Or how did you progress in your knowledge of the craft?
Well, in college, I remember calling a phone number and talking to a member of the Ordo Templi Orientis that was based out in Akron near Cleveland, and spending a couple hours conversation talking with them. And that was kind of where I started buying more serious books on the subject. But I think probably February 14th, 2007, I moved to New York City and I started living with my dear friend Matthew. I've been friends with Matthew since high school, and we formed a band that day. We called ourselves Telecult Powers after a Parker Publishing book. Parker Publishing being one of those publishing houses that would just produce kind of exploitive books on witchcraft and the occult. There were some gems in there, but Telecult Powers itself wasn't really one of their gems. But one thing I really liked about it was there were some solid magical techniques in it with a very funny name, Telecult Powers. So we formed our band Telecult Powers, and we started playing a lot of gigs. I think total about 140 gigs, most of the New York City area, Brooklyn, Manhattan. I don't think we ever got to like the Bronx or Staten Island, but up and down the East Coast as well. And in these rituals, we would perform candle magic, and or these concert performances, these gigs, and we would always put out an array of candles. We would always set magical intention, and we would just play probably the most cosmic of cosmic music, extremely amplified synthesizer music. And synthesizer music has a very great way of changing your brain waves from the dominant alpha to more of a beta wave. And with these sounds, we would always have elements of ritual. We would anoint the audience with magical oils, and it was definitely a thing to do for a few years there in New York.
That sounds really cool.
I think that truly is when I became a true devotee to the mysteries.
That's awesome. That that sounds really cool, actually. So what happened when the band thing came to its close? Where'd you go?
Well, my spouse and I, we were living in New York, and then one day we thought, let's go down to New Orleans, and we
Oh,
loved it down there. So we moved to New Orleans, and there's pretty much anywhere you shake a stick in New Orleans, you're going to find it's running some magical people. And I had a pretty magical crew down there, and did a lot of the New Orleans general occult stuff. But then around 2012, maybe it was, yeah, 2012, I decided that kind of missed my parents. So we moved up to Cleveland after that. And then here in Cleveland, just kind of did, did some general magic with some general people. And then in 2016, I made friends with Toni, who you either have talked to or will be talking to. And in 2017, we opened up the museum. So it's always been kind of like a progression.
yeah, nice. That's awesome. And so since you opened it in 2017, what have you guys been kind of doing, or what have you personally been doing to help further that?
Well, let's see. We spent a lot of time with the pagan community here in the Cleveland area. Plus, we're a beacon. So magical people from hours and hours away tend to come and see us here. So every day I get to engage with somebody that is either a practitioner of witchcraft, practitioner of magic, or just very interested in it. I get a lot of armchair occultists that come in here. How we get to discuss books, constantly buying book collections of occult books, trading, selling, etc. So, just kind of being in the thick of it. I do have a small magical group where we gather together every approximately 6 weeks, and we do the rituals out of Ray's Big Blue, our founder, Ray Buckland. I'm sure we'll discuss at length. We'll talk. We do the rituals for the time out of his complete book of witchcraft. So that's a way to kind of keep his magic going, even though he doesn't really need any help with that. But we
Right.
get to honor him here in the museum by doing his rituals.
Nice. So would you say you are, in your experience, you had some time as a solitary practitioner and then working some with a group? What would you say were some of your best times as working solitary or in a group? And what are your thoughts on like the pros and cons of each?
Let's see. The best times, I think the most powerful magic I ever did was as a solo practitioner. I performed a ritual with the idea when we were moving to New Orleans, I wanted to be part of the New Orleans tourist industry. Well, I got to New Orleans and it turned out that I was very good at selling French bistro furnitures
Oh, cool.
online. But that led to me getting a gig here in Cleveland that led to me being the curator of a pop culture museum here in Cleveland, as well as the head of marketing, which led to me to be able to do what I do today. So I'm pretty sure the spirits I called upon were like, well, you aren't ready for this now. This collection that I caretake today is was in New Orleans when I was down there, but I had no idea.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So I feel like the spirits had a plan for me. It just took a little while for them to manifest.
Right, right.
So I think that's probably the greatest magical work I did as a solo practitioner. But in a group, I just love it. I love the camaraderie. I love getting together with the same people every approximately 6 weeks. I love sometimes I didn't study very well, and you can tell with my role. And I love that sometimes person A or person B didn't study well, and I get to, say Wittershins. And so I really love that. But if I'm going to do some serious magic, if I need something, I tend to do it as a solo practitioner because to me it can be very private. But
Right,
we have done group work for purpose, and I can see the role for that as well.
right,
But to me, that sort of thing's more of a private experience.
right, right. So, would you be willing to share? I know you shared the one you just did, but would you be willing to share if there was like a moment or an experience in your life where it was like the the magic really clicked for you and you were able to have like beyond a shadow of a doubt a full and true belief in magic and the craft and what it can do and does do for you.
There was a time where I was very desperate to get employment when I was in my 20s, and it seemed like everything I was doing to get employed, I was doing the wrong thing. And I was a fan of a comic book called The Invisibles, written by a guy named Grant Morrison. And in the letters pages one day, he explained how to create a sigil. I created the sigil, and I got a decent job that would help me pay my rent just a couple days later. And after that, magic was truly no longer an abstract idea, but it was something that was could be used with purpose in nearly almost everyday life.
Have you continued with sigil work since then?
I have, um, I have quite a bit actually. It's sometimes if I need something quickly, that tends to be my fastest route.
Cool. Would you be willing to maybe share how you go about making your sigils or using them?
Yeah, I do the classic. You write out your intention and you make sure that it's as specific as possible. You combine all the letters into one thing. You make this form, and I tend to kind of charge them in whatever way that I possibly can at the moment. Sometimes it's just meditating on it when I
Mm,
run down the street, and that seems to be a good way to like give it the lift to take off. Um, so yeah, I mean, this is something I probably do about once a month, maybe once every 2 months.
oh, that's awesome. Very cool. So, do you put it all together on a sheet of paper? What do you do with your paper when it's like been fulfilled?
There's been times where I've burned it ceremoniously. Other times I recycle it. You know, it's done. You know, the
Right,
up here, the release of the sigil. That's where the magic is. The piece of paper. That's just the discarded waste. So
right.
I kind of recycle it.
Nice,
So
nice.
if you're a garbage picker and you find out where I live, you could dig deep and get pretty much a master course on sigil making.
That's awesome. So, who are some of your favorite authors?
So my favorite authors, oh gosh, quite a number of them. It's probably the first writer I started reading about magic with was William S. Burroughs, uh, the Beatnik writer. So anything he wrote about magic, I tend to find and enjoy it. I mentioned Grant Morrison, the comic book writer, of course, Alan Moore. These are all earlier kind of books. As far as like magic itself, I uh, I really enjoy the work of say Lon Milo Duquette, who we're actually going to have here in the museum in November. This might be the first anybody's hearing about it. I like the way that he takes Crowley's complex ideas and make them something that I can fathom because I don't have the classical traditional training of Aleister Crowley. Let's see. Of course. Oh, I mean, we're sitting here in his temple, Ray Buckland. I always love Ray's books. I always try to read anything that, like, if I get a book in the collection that is one of Ray's that I haven't read already, I always at least try to read as much of it as I can. Uh, Ray had a very great, concise, almost Hemingway style to explore the mysteries. Some people wish that there was a little more flower to it, but I think Ray is. There's a reason why he was the great Ray Buckland. Let's see. Um, yeah, so those are a couple just off the top of my head, but there's a million more. Oh, how can I not talk about Doreen Valiente? Her ABCs of Witchcraft. That was very pivotal in my training of being able to open up this place years ago, and had gave me a good understanding of what I was talking about. Because when we first opened, I really didn't quite grok exactly how to express what we were going through, what we're talking about. So, gotta give a shout out to Doreen Valiente.
Wonderful. So, where do you hope to go in the craft for yourself? Do you have hopes for the future, or do you kind of just go with the flow?
I'm more of a go with the flow type. I always study, I always learn. I'm always asking my guests if they have any ideas about certain things. But to me, I mean, if anybody tells you that they're a true master of the craft, they know all there is to know, there's a lot to find. There's a lot to uncover. So I tend to, I know many people who have been involved in formal witchcraft training for decades, and I think they'd agree with me that there's always something a little bit more to uncover. So I'm more of a go with the flow type and not expect anything, but hope that my well just keeps getting filled with knowledge of the mysteries.
Nice. Who have been some of your favorite guests at the museum?
A lot of them. It's hard to explain just the feeling that I get when somebody comes into the museum and you can see that their eyes are like sparked with imagination. But I mean, my favorite guests are ones that a grok what we're doing, and b have something to share with me about what they're doing. And it happens a lot. People pull me aside and they tell me a story. Maybe they tell me about how their aunt used to read their tea leaves. That's always really cool. Um,
Mm.
I get guests from all over the world that come through here. And it's always, and you never know who's going to walk through the door, but chances are they're going to be very cool people.
Right.
Because, I mean, there's a witchcraft museum. It kind of keeps the terrible people out the away.
Right. That's true. That's true. Uh, okay, so do you practice any kind of divination yourself?
Well, Sometimes we do have a club. It's called the Diviners Circle. It's called the Emerald City Circle. My friend Michael runs it. I don't know why we're the Emerald City because we're not. I think he came from somewhere else where it was the Emerald City and just wanted to keep the name. But we meet every first Monday of the month here in the museum, and we pull out some tables and we gather. And somebody usually gives a lecture about a type of divination, and then usually we hang out, talk afterwards, and some people trade readings with each other. Um, uh, and it goes from very well practiced Wiccans that have been doing it for 40 years to we have a 15-year-old kid that's really good at Lenormand decks. So it's kind of like a whole wide variety of people that come and join us for that. So me, I'm always playing with tarot because the tarot is something that I've studied for many, many years, but I don't feel like I even have a 1% knowledge of everything that goes on within it. And I've realized I have a pretty good handle on, the Pamela Coleman Smith deck. So I pulled out my copy of Lady Frida Harris's Thoth deck, trying to kind of just delve into the mysteries of that one a little bit more. So but I wouldn't necessarily call myself a talented reader. I just love doing it.
Do you have a favorite type of divination aside from tarot that you enjoy learning about or exploring or having done?
Always fascinated by runes, although I can never quite grasp what's going on with them. Just I love reading about things like geomancy. Recently at the Diviners Circle, we had a person give a really in-depth presentation on geomancy and how to do it and how to get its results, which I found very, very enlightening to say. But that's just something. I don't see myself as a geomancer. I see myself as somebody that likes listening to lectures about geomancy.
Can you possibly explain a little bit of what geomancy is in case anybody doesn't know what it is?
I don't know. I'd say look it up because any information I would give would be incomplete and far off. But essentially, it is binary systems, just patterns. And then if you get a pattern of things that say this, well, then we break it down to this, break it down to that, break it down. And then at the end, you have your results. But other than that, I wouldn't really. It's one of those things that I enjoy reading about, but don't ask me to explain it.
Okay. Do you have a second favorite?
Not really. I like the old games, old vintage games, Halloween games. Like stuff that you'd buy at old flea markets, that kind of stuff. But other than that, it's there's a whole world of divination out there.
Right.
I like staring in black mirrors for a while. Nothing really ever tends to stare back at me.
That might be a good thing.
Yeah, I just sit there and wait.
I don't know why, but I just want to ask, have you ever had any experiences with a Ouija board?
Yeah, I'm not I've never had an experience with a Ouija board myself that I was convinced of anything. But people come and tell me their Ouija story experiences all the time. One guy told a really funny story recently. I can't really do it justice. And it's kind of weird because it ends in the way that you would expect a joke to begin. But it was a guy and he was like, yeah, it was the 1970s. And we're having a party at my friend's house. So we gather party supplies around the neighborhood. we take them to let's see, we take them to the place that the party is going to be, the girl that lived next door to us. And her mother had thrown away a Ouija board the week before. Now, this Ouija board that she threw away, well, one of the party supplies we got was a Ouija board. So she finds this board. She convinces herself that's the same board. And a couple days later, the party begins, Friday night, and there's a knock at the door. And this is the part that sounds like the beginning of a joke, but it's the end of a story. There was a priest, a minister, and a rabbi at the door, and they all came in. So it turned out Mom freaked out, so she just started calling every single person in the phone book that she thought could help. And I thought that was actually that was spectacular.
That is funny. That is funny. By happenstance, another one ended up, and she was panicking.
Yeah, she was convinced it was the same board. So, but I have never truly had any kind of experience with a Ouija board where I was convinced it wasn't the other person moving it around. So, what about you?
Oh, yeah, I've had a couple experiences.
Yeah.
Some of them were not so fun.
Oh, I
Um,
bet.
but yeah, I was at a house and using the Ouija board, and it ended up spelling out believe. And at the time, I was like, that's interesting. And then I realized that I was wearing a shirt that said believe. Right. And I didn't like it didn't register at first. Like you put a shirt on, you don't always think about what's on it or what it says.
Right.
And it was written in this real funny cursive. So it was kind of hard to read that it said believe. But yeah, like it took a minute to register that it was the shirt that I was wearing and that had spelled out believe. And I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. I think we're done here.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, so people always tell me about people freak out when they see the Ouija boards. There's a symbol. It's a symbol of something that's really deep in people's psyche. The idea of opening portals to other worlds and not really knowing what will seep in. So, yeah.
Well, it's funny because here in the shop, we're half tattoo shop and half woo shop. And my husband's business card looks like a Ouija board.
Yeah. And I'm sure that freaks people out, right?
It does, but it's funny. I'll grab one real quick and show you. But it's kind of hilarious. And he's got stickers on his car, so he'll have people like slow down beside him snapping pictures, and he always thinks like, what did I do? Did I cut him off or whatever? And then he realizes that they're snapping pictures.
Oh.
Business card.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the rooster.
So that's always fun. It's a fun little thing, but I don't have a problem with Ouija boards. I just feel like, take it with a grain of salt and be careful, because I feel like there is that potential to do something that maybe you shouldn't.
I didn't really even realize that people were that opposed to them until I wore a Ouija shirt to my old place of employment, and the CEO at the time was like shocked anybody would wear something like that. What?
Just a shirt.
What?
So do you have any of the like spiritual gifts or anything that you feel like help you? Any clairsenses or like a spot on intuition or anything?
Do I?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I have a pretty low grade psychic sense about me, but I can definitely tell if somebody comes into the place that's up to no good. right away, and that's something that served me very well.
Yeah.
But I don't. I try it all. I try to send telepathic thoughts. Mm. I try to scream them at the top of my lungs. Nobody ever hears them. I try to pick up what people are thinking. Usually, it's just dead air for me. Let's see. I'm always trying psychometry. I always hold things and try to get their vibes.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
The only thing in the museum that when I do that really makes my hair stand up on end is our mandrake root. That thing makes me feel all like wobbly inside. So other than that, it's I don't know. Ray in his all his books says that this is something that can be developed. Well, I've been trying to develop for years and years, but I kind of also feel that in a place doing what I do for a living, discussing the things that I discuss all day, that maybe the universe is doing me a favor by lowering my senses a little bit. Because, I mean, not to sound like Lovecraftian or anything, but some of the things in there, who knows, maybe they would drive me to madness.
That's true, though. I mean, it's a good way of thinking about it. Like you said, it served you well by not overloading you with information or constantly chattering you up in your head or distracting you with energy or things like that. So I could see where that would be a good thing to have it just be not so amped up. Um, do you have any favorite areas of the craft that you enjoy working in the most?
I'd rather not discuss that.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
But yeah.
I know you had mentioned like the candle magic and the sigil magic.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
fair.
I guess pretty much my absolute favorite part of the craft is this learning the history of it and breaking it down and seeing patterns of behavior in people and figuring out who is who and who did what and why is what it is and who is what's not and who's who is. You know what I mean? Like I think that's really my absolute favorite part of all of this is getting down into the nitty gritty, looking at lineages, looking at who brings what to what table, who introduces what ideas at what time. Sorry, there's some strange people gathered in front of the shop right now. We're closed, so kind of. All right, they're moving on.
Oh, good.
They seem a little uptight to be standing in front of our place, so
Right. They're probably in the wrong place.
I hope so.
So what is your favorite part of the history, do you think?
Well, just kind of the early craft ideas, going with Gardner, and then all the rivals, the other people that were springing up around him, and it's uh, it's all it's all interesting. So I have to say that, but I'm very excited for a book that Jason Mankey's writing about our founder Ray Buckland and his idea of bringing the craft of the wise to the United States in the early '60s. Because that's something that we celebrate all day long here at
Right.
the museum. So I am so thrilled for a book for me to read about our founder Ray and see what I think is correct and what I would argue with. Jason's usually very on point with his arguments about one thing or another. So I'm sure there won't be a lot of that. But I'm really, really looking forward to digging into kind of another person's idea of what happened there.
Right. Would you be willing to share a little bit of history about Raymond Buckland?
Well, yeah, he came to the States in the 60s. So he's from London. He's in Long Island, New York. And he starts, he's working as a copywriter. So he's learning how to make money, and he's also learning how to write at the same time.
Hmm.
He was already a bit of a writer, but this is where it's gelling. But I just love this idea that there was a spiritual call that was lacking. And he seeks, and he gets books by Gerald Gardner. Gerald Gardner, the father of modern witchcraft, person that took all these abstract ideas and he formed, what some people call Wicca. And, Ray discovers that, and that makes the eyeball or the light bulb go off over his head, where he's like, I could be part of this. And then he starts writing letters, and there's correspondences. And the next thing you know, Ray goes to a ceremony called Initiation in Perth, Scotland, where he meets Monique Wilson, Lady Olwen. She brings Ray into the mysteries. He brings those mysteries to America. We now have modern witchcraft in America because of it. And just because he did it when he did, 63, of course, all this stuff was exploding at the time. The occult explosion in the 1960s. So if he didn't do it, somebody else would have done it shortly after. But Ray was the one. And in doing so, he really gets the craft movement going in America. And, this is years before LaVey has his Church of Satan on the West Coast. There are people in the suburbs of New York City performing rites to appease the old gods. And I just love these ideas so much.
That's really cool. Yeah. Where do you think things progressed from there to get to where they are today? Like, do you think there was a moment in time where, because today it feels like there's so much information out there
Yeah.
and there's so much misinformation out there.
Oh, yeah, there's lots of funk.
So how do you think we got from him in the 60s to today with the mass information and it not being so in alignment?
Oh, that was there in the beginning, though. It's there was all sorts of after once it hit America, there was all sorts of exploitation books that just started popping up, and these would have to be typed. Most of them typed, not written, right? Where just people are banging out ideas. I'm not going to call out names or anything like that, but there's a lot of paperbacks out there where you read it and you think, oh, geez, this person decided he may have had a couple stories presented to him, but he had to add some luridness to one of the stories and take it to the extreme. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, there's no putting toothpaste back into the tube after it gets started. And it's like ketchup sprayed all over the walls of misinformation all across the land. And that's something that you got to deal with. And it's yeah.
What advice would you offer to people that are finding this misinformation and they're wondering if it's true? Like, what would be some top resources or ways that they could go about to know if they're finding things that are accurate?
I don't know. Do you have suggestions, Whitney?
I mean, maybe going to some of the old school authors or,
Right.
you
Mm-hmm.
know,
I would go with old school authors, but a lot of those guys, a lot of those people, they printed stuff that wasn't necessarily accurate either. I mean, a lot of people criticize Ray for writing about the idea of a pre-Christian witch cult, which Margaret Murray, which some people would argue existed, some people would argue didn't. Me, I wasn't there. All I know is all these ideas is what I'd call an article of faith. So, do I necessarily believe that there was a unbroken lineage of initiation back to the Stone Age, the horned god of the hunt? Some days, yes, I do. Other days, I'm like, I don't know. I guess I have to research that a bit more. So, I think, be true to yourself, true to your beliefs, and try to read as much as you can. The more you read, the more you listen, the more this all kind of gels together in your head.
Right. Nice. Very well put. So, what do you have coming up in the near future?
We got a lot of different events coming up because we are leading up to what some people would consider witchcraft season. Me, witchcraft season's more Beltane because I'm just excited to see the goddess come back, you know. But Samhain, this is Halloween is the time, from the fall equinox to Halloween is considered Halloween season. So of course, there's always a lot of things leading up to it. So I'll be giving some lectures at Cleveland Public Library on September 28th. I'll be doing a lecture on the history of Halloween and some of the folklore that surrounds it. Then on October 4th, I'll be at the Cleveland Institute of Art, where I'll be discussing the history of art and the occult, which seems like an easy thing to talk about, and it will be easy. But how do I express probably about a 10-hour masterclass into 40 minutes plus Q&A? I don't know how we're going to do that, but it should be a blast. I mean, I've read a lot of books on art, the occult. None of them cover the same people. None of them are the same thing. So I went to 2 lectures this year about people talking about art and the occult. I won't be talking about what they were talking about, but it's all, so that'll be fun. I'm excited for that, and I've been actively working on that. Then we do have the Witches Ball here in Cleveland on October 19th, which is going to be so much fun. Get a chance to hang out with some of our local witches. And I know people will be coming to it regionally. And then October 20th is kind of the flagship event of the year for us. We team up with our friend Emma, who's at a local punk bar, true dive bar called No Class. And she runs the Halloween flea market. And we take up multiple places in the Cleveland Lakewood border. And we have just tons of vendors. People get to share their crafts, share their product. And let's see. So that's October 20th. And then I think I have a couple of things lined up, but I don't remember what they are. So this is really going into our busy time.
Gotcha. How did you get started with doing the Witches Ball?
The Witches Ball was just we are our local pagan pride organization. They are the masterminds behind it.
Got it.
I just am allowed to sponsor it, and also the same with the Halloween flea market. I've been sponsoring the Halloween flea market for the last 7 years. Right when we first opened, Emma was very generous. She said, "Hey, can we? Do you want to co-sponsor this with me?" And I said, "Well, I don't have a lot of time. What do I do?" And she goes, "Just we'll put Buckland Museum presents on the top." I said, "All right, we could do that." And it's really grown into like a lot of people's favorite Halloween event in the Cleveland area since then.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So does the flea market run just like all day long into the night, or?
It'll be 12 to 6.
Okay. So basically a daytime thing, but it's kind of set up like a vendor fair maybe?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
But this is a massive one.
How many vendors do you think attend?
Oh, I don't even know. A couple hundred.
Wow. Very cool. Very
It's
cool.
always a good time.
So you opened the museum how long ago?
Well, I guess I first met Toni 2016, and we decided to team up, and we opened in 2017. So that was about 7 years ago.
Awesome. And you guys have done really well since?
Have we done well? Yeah, I thought we'd be open for 6 months. I didn't think anybody would ever come, and We have lines out the door. So if you want to come see the museum, make sure that you order your tickets on our website, bucklandmuseum.org. Order in advance. We're coming up to the Halloween season, and everybody's going to show up, especially on the Saturdays and Sundays, and be like, "What do you mean other people want to come see this stuff? What? What?"
Right.
And so buy tickets in advance. Bucklandmuseum.org. Best way to guarantee you get to see the museum.
Awesome.
But
Well,
yeah, no, I mean, as far as your question, like, have we done well? Yeah, I mean, we get anywhere from like 7,000 to 8,000 guests a year. We get people that travel from all over the world. We have international speakers like your friend Tamara von Forslund. Uh, we are definitely on the radar of people who we want to be on the radar of and people we wouldn't want to be on the radar of. So yeah, I think as far as a punk rock DIY museum showing a very underserved and underground community, I think we've done okay. And but God is willing, we continue to keep doing okay. Toni and I, we always just strive to keep going and figuring out new and exciting and cool ways to kind of spark the creative imagination of our guests and have our guests realize that they have a piece of the goddess growing inside of them.
right. Very cool. Very cool. So, how many speakers do you think you have a year? Like, how many different speaking events do y'all offer?
That's, I don't know, maybe 10.
Okay.
Maybe we try to, we try to, being in Cleveland, it's not really exciting to book speakers in February and then
Right.
let a cancellation situation.
Gotcha.
But then we try to load it up in the summer months.
Nice.
So I really need to start compiling a list of all the different speakers we've had because we've had hundreds. Well,
Oh,
maybe 100 have come through
yeah.
in the last 7 years or so.
Are there any ones that stand out?
Well, I mentioned her previously, Tamara von Forslund. She's an excellent public speaker, so I always like it when she comes. Patty Wigington, who can trace her witchcraft lineage back to Ray. She's spoken a number of times. Those have all been good. Let's see. Gosh, I unfortunately, if I don't mention everyone, somebody's going to feel like they were left out.
Right.
But yeah, I like them all. They wouldn't be speaking if I didn't think that they had something quality to bring to the table.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there certain types of speakers that you enjoy, like ones on like the divination or the craft or the history, or is it like a variety of things that they talk about? Is it authors maybe talking about their
I
books?
like when authors come. Who are the rock stars of witchcraft? But the authors, right? It's yeah. So I like when the authors come
Yeah.
talk about their experiences, what brought them to their own version of the craft that they bring.
Right. Cool. Do you have any final thoughts you would like to share?
Final thoughts. What Jerry Springer say? Be good to each other. It's leave the drama of witchcraft behind. Remember that anybody that experiences this kind of thing, if the wrong types of people take over the world, we'll all get burned together. So make peace with witches. And make peace with. You walk in peace with other magical folk. Because we all, in a way, strive for the same purpose: learning the mysteries, exploring them, and sharing them.
Very true. Very true. Thank you. Well,
Well, thanks for having me on, Whitney. So
Yeah,
you are in Raleigh, Salem, where?
Winston-Salem.
Winston-Salem. So that's a famous place for tobacco, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Excellent.
Emeralds.
And you have a shop there?
I
It's
do.
called Witch Source.
Yep. The
And
witch.
half of it's tattoo and the other half's woo.
Yes. Yep.
Excellent.
So we've got part metaphysical shop and part tattoo shop.
Now, do you do body modification as well? Piercings, that kind of thing?
We're apprenticing a piercer right now. So she will be starting soon. She's finishing up her apprenticeship. So
Walk around with big gauges and all that. We have a tattoo shop that's very popular down the street from us, and I always like it because people wander in here because they got their piercings or their tattoo, and then they're like, "There's a witchcraft museum over there. I gotta go check that out." So that is a secret and a forbidden art on its own. I mean, I always think about when I got my first tattoo, which is actually it was a sigil from the Sandman comic book. It was a talisman against bad dreams, and I had to drive an hour to well, in my idea, rural Ohio. It was Illyria, and you had to have these little red map books to figure out where you were going, and like going into this like completely like dangerous looking place, the very dangerous looking man who tattooed me. And now it's not quite like that anymore, but it's the idea of tattooing is still such a forbidden and secretive art in my heart, I guess.
yeah, they definitely fit well together. And I know a lot of people actually get a form of magical tattoo, whether it's a sigil um, or a symbol or something, or they get something that has some kind of meaning or significance that they want a certain kind of, energy that going into it.
Yeah.
So it does go together surprisingly well. So I would definitely agree with you on that. I mean, they are definitely in the same vein of the taboo and forbidden. Um,
But I always wonder if like the people when I was a kid, when I was in high school, the wrestlers would go and get Tasmanian devils tattooed on their calves. And at that time, I thought it was like cartoonish. Like, what are they doing? And now I understand that, they were wrestlers. So they were little Tasmanian devils. And this was a totem. And hopefully it would drive them to, like performing their physical abilities, and the tattoo on their calf, maybe drawing some of that energy in. Wow, that's mind blowing.
well, yeah, helping to
The first time I ever thought about that.
yeah, helping to motivate and get them amped up and in the
Yeah,
right.
unleash the beast within.
Yeah,
Nice, excellent.
yeah, we
So
have pretty cool things come through.
yeah, I bet, and like with the explosion of tattooing in the last 20 years, and just the explosion of talented tattooers. It's like the world. I look at like I get stuck in looking at tattoo Instagram sometimes.
Yeah.
Just, wow, just the things that people can do now that wasn't even fathomable, you know, 30 years ago.
Oh yeah, and the techniques and the styles are so different than they were, um, and yeah, there are some really good ones. My husband's actually won several awards. He just won Best Artist for the Triad, so that's like a big section like Greensboro, High Point, Winston, a pretty big section of North Carolina. He won Best Artist for 2024.
Oh, wow. Well,
So
congrats to your husband. What's his name?
Rooster.
Rooster. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So, yeah, Rooster's tattoos and woo.
Rooster's tattoos and woo. Excellent. Well, if I ever find myself around there, I'm definitely going to come by.
Yeah, please do. Please do. If anybody wanted to maybe get in touch with you, if they have questions about the museum or anything like that, what would be a good way for them to reach you?
Our website, bucklandmuseum.org. You can email me, bucklandmuseum@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram, Buckland Museum. You can find us on Facebook. There's all sorts of ways to find us, but probably the best way is the email, bucklandmuseum@gmail.com. That's where most of it comes through. And yeah, come contact us, say hi, follow our Instagram, etc. Best way to find out what we got going on.
Awesome. And that's where they can find out about future events and tickets too.
Yes.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Steven, so much for being with me today and talking with me.
Thanks for talking. Thanks for helping me deal with my technical difficulties earlier. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. All right. So you guys can find this interview and more on the podcast, which you can find anywhere you can listen to podcasts. You can find this one and more information about The Witch Source at thewitchsource.com, and also follow along on our Instagram and Facebook. So thank you, Steven, and until next time.
Thank you, Whitney. Blessed be.